Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're thinking about selling your home in Maine, I need to warn you. Homes are sitting on the market for 2 months or more and sellers are starting to get frustrated. I see this mistake all the time and I'm seeing more and more price reductions as more inventory is coming on the market and sitting for longer. Listen, gone are the days of multiple offers within 24 hours. Instead, listings are lingering and buyers are hesitant as price reductions seem to become the norm. But why is this happening? And more importantly, what can you do to sell your house faster for top dollar? Stay with me because in this video, I'm going to be breaking down exactly what's going on and the 5 key strategies you need to know to get your home sold fast in today's market. Guys, grab a cup of coffee, grab some hot chocolate, maybe your favorite beverage, because we're going to get after that right now. All right, guys, welcome back to the channel here at Live Life in Maine. My name is Scott Thibeau. I'm a realtor. I'm a broker with eXp Realty. I'm an investor, and I'm also a real estate consultant, business owner. I own multiple properties. I've been doing this for quite a while. Real estate is my passion. It's all I do. And more importantly than that, guys, if you've never been to this channel, well, then you're going to know that well, you don't know, but you'd find out if you watched other videos. More importantly than all that, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a grandfather now of 3 children. Man, they were just over here last night. Holy hell, man. I love having grandchildren, as I'm sure many of you do that have grandchildren, because you can send them home after they've been just wound up, you know, feed them with candy, give them all kinds of stuff, let them go crazy, and off they go for mom and dad to deal with. So, but I remember those days. Anyways, I digress. I'm also a veteran, I'm a patriot, and I'm a son of Maine. Grew up here and was born and raised here in Maine. I grew up in Saco, Maine. I was born in 1967, graduated in 1986 from high school, and went off to see the world in the military for about, I was 8 years, and then I came back about a couple of years later, about 9 years totally gone. Been back ever since. I say this, and I'm not bashful about it. I'm 57 years old. Why does that matter? I think it really matters mostly because the older you get, the more experience you get in anything, right? This is just doesn't have to be real estate. But at my age, some people call me old. My kids call me old, obviously. But I've seen a lot. I've done a lot in terms of the real estate market. I understand a lot, obviously, because I've been doing it for a while. And you just kind of, as you get older, you get more experience. So that's why I bring up my age, because real estate is getting more and more complicated, actually, with the new laws and everything that's going on. But I just find that the more experience you have, the better off you can represent your clients. Not to say that there aren't some young whippersnappers out there, because there are, that can probably run circles around me. I only work with like 20 to 25 clients a year, but it's just because I want to handle and be involved in everything. I used to do the team thing. I used to do all that stuff. I don't do it anymore. It's just me. I'm a broker. I have partners across the state that I work with, but in terms of working with you, if you choose to work with me, we're going to be working on a one-on-one case basis. You're never going to get handed off to somebody else. So anyways. But in this episode, guys, you didn't chime in about me. You want to know what are the top, if you're thinking about selling in this market, what are the top 5 mistakes that I see a lot of sellers are doing, and their brokers, their realtors are doing as well, because you really got to understand the market dynamics, and you got to understand what's going on. The market is cooling. You're seeing what's happening in Florida and Texas, and it's going to start propagating throughout the rest of the country, where housing prices are getting stagnant. Houses are sitting on the market. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market. Buyers are a little bit fatigued because of the interest rates. There's supposed to be some more drops coming. We'll see. There's a lot of federal employees potentially getting laid off. What does that mean for the workforce in the private sector? Are they going to be competing for more jobs? The tariffs, what all that means, who knows? And what does that mean as a seller? Because actually it all comes into play when you're trying to sell your house for top dollar. But that being said, here are the top 5 things that I think sellers do wrong that need to work on when they put their house on the market. Now, these aren't in order, but I'm going to save one of the biggest ones for last, the 5th thing, because I do see that's one of the biggest criteria to making sure your house sells fast. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Number 1, and some of this is common sense, but you got to make your house stand out from others, right? You got to get through the white noise. As more and more inventory comes on the market, you're actually having more, for the first time in a while, more competition as a seller, because now buyers are going to have more options to look at different houses in different price points as, again, the inventory comes higher. So what are some things you can do to make your house stand out? Obviously, right now is a great time to work on some of those things. We're in March. February and March in Maine are typically the slow months of the real estate season in Maine. So unless you're desperate, unless you got to put your house on the market right now, I would wait a couple months and work on some of these things. Here's some small things you can do, right? So I'll use my house as an example. I can't tell you how many times my wife has thrown open the door and that little door stop that's supposed to stop the door doesn't, or broke, and now there's a dent in the wall, right? So replace some of your dents in your sheetrock. Obviously, clean it and get the clutter out of the way. You're going to make the house be able to flow as much as possible. So when somebody comes in and does a tour, they can understand how that house could set up with their stuff in it based upon the flow of the house that you currently have, the home that you currently have. If you got some painting to do, now's a great time to do it. Do some touch-up, fresh painting. Maybe you need to replace a faucet here or there. You get an old faucet or something like that. I'm not talking about a whole kitchen remodel or bathroom remodel. Sure, you could do that too if it's old and antiquated. But maybe just some minor faucets, or even if you have an appliance that you need to replace, or maybe you need to replace some old hardware on some cupboard doors or something along those lines. Just something that's going to make your house stand out a little bit more when they come in and do a tour. Cleaning and cluttering, obviously, getting the clutter. We all have this problem. I have this problem. When you've been in a house for 10, 15 years, you collect stuff, right? And sometimes you should get rid of the stuff you didn't. Just make sure that your house flows pretty evenly, and people can understand when they're walking through it what that place may look like, what that home may look like if they buy it and move in. The other thing is, obviously, curbside appeal doesn't really mean that much right now because we get snow on the ground. But as the snow goes away, if and especially in the summertime, make sure your lawns are manicured if you have lawn. Make sure that, there's not a lot of clutter in your yard, from kids' bicycles to trash cans to whatever else is going on in your front yard. Even that could mean, the street in front of you, right? Even though it's not your responsibility, it's probably the municipality or the town that you live in. Just make sure that's clean and, free of clutter or sand or mud or whatever, right? Just giving an idea of what it could look like to live on that street that you live in or in the neighborhood that you live in. So just kind of getting that stuff clean and cluttered and curbside appeal. Guys, that's kind of second nature. Most brokers are going to tell you this. Most realtors are going to tell you this, right? But that's one of the things you can work on this winter as we're in the beginning of March, and some of the things that you might want to consider to making your house more appealing. Number 2, you got to get aggressive with marketing. So the market has shifted, and it is shifting. So I'm going to be the first to tell you this, and maybe you've heard this before. In 2021 and 2022, realtors, brokers like myself and others, when we were listing houses or putting houses on the MLS, we actually didn't have to spend a lot of time and money on marketing because there was such a frenzy for houses being sold that you'd have multiple offers after a weekend showing or an open house. Back then, this is only 2-3 years ago, when interest rates were 2, 3, even low 4%. The bigger thing that was a challenge was understanding the type of loans that were available. I can't tell you how many hours I spent on the phone talking to different lenders to try to understand the loans that were being offered, the contracts that were being offered and the types of loans they were, to make sure whatever I convinced or whatever I recommended my seller to take, it's not always on best price, by the way, that the house would close, right? So spend a lot of time with lenders, spend a lot of time with the buyer broker, understanding that their seller, making sure that their buyer, if you will, was really clear on what they were doing, because the last thing we wanted to do was find out that the property fell through, the deal fell through, no fault of the seller, because, from financing or contingencies or something along those lines. So we wanted to make sure that didn't happen, because every day, every minute, every hour we took the house off the market to put it under contract with somebody else, and that fell through means that we lost all those potential buyers. So, but that isn't the case now, guys. The case today is you're getting more inventory. Now you got to get through the white noise, kind of like the buyers had to get through 3 years ago, right? So what do I mean by the white noise? Again, I already talked about that. You're going to have more competition, more houses on the market. Maybe your neighbor's house will be a competition, yours maybe not. But price points and curb appeal is all going to be important. So when we say spend more time on marketing, again, back in 2021, 2022, brokers, realtors could just throw their house on the MLS and deal with all the other stuff that comes with that. You can't just do that today, right? Beyond throwing it on the multiple listing service, you got to have really good pictures, right? You gotta, people go online first. So whatever you're going to present online's got to be appealing to them enough to say, hey, I want to see this property. Now, I've also seen some pictures where the pictures are way better than the houses. So you got to kind of make it realistic. But you got to have good photography. You got to have drone footage flying over the area. More and more people want to not only see what the interior of the house looks like, but the exterior of the house and the grounds and what's around them looks like. They also want to know kind of the layout, right? So Matterport, or there's programs out there. Matterport is a program where you can go through each room and it gives you the dimensions and it lays out the house kind of like an architectural drawing that you can see online. And it shows the dimensions and everything of a house, so people online can understand the size of the rooms, how the house lays out. So they, if they're looking to move in, how their furniture will fit and all that. So that's another tool. And then obviously, buyers, it's important for buyers, it's important for sellers, if you will, to leave a good first impression, because social media is one of the driving factors behind real estate today, right? A lot of people go on social media, and that's not just Zillow, right? They go on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and I don't know, all those other apps that are out there. And the more you can get your house showcased on some of those platforms, the more chances you're going to have of getting an offer. Remember, guys, in the real estate industry, contacts, like what I do, contacts equal contracts. But as a seller, showings equal offers. And the more showings you have, the more offers you're going to have. Which is going to give you more opportunity to get where you want to be in terms of a price and an exit strategy to sell your house. So remember that. It's important, very important, to get aggressive on marketing. And realtors, brokers, they have different, some of them included into the price. Some of them say, for this price, we can do this. For this price, we can do this. So be cognizant of what your agent is offering in terms of how they're going to market your house. I've seen a lot of sellers, because they've known the realtor or they saw the realtor sell a house down the street, that they automatically assume that they're going to be able to sell their house. And every house is different. So you're really going to want to understand, what is the marketing plan to sell your house? And what happens if your house doesn't sell? And I'm just going to throw this out at you, right? So let's say you're selling your house, and between staging and everything, your realtor, your listing broker, listing agent says it's going to cost 5%. But that's their 5%, and that doesn't include a buyer broker fee, because, they're going to have to spend a lot more money than they normally had to sell your house. Well, you can say, sure, but I want to put a timeline on it. So I'll offer you 5% if I get a good offer within 30 days. But if the house sits longer, meaning that realtor needs to do more to get your house showcase, well, time is money, right? So you gotta kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? You can keep it at one rate, or you can say, listen, after 30 days, if it doesn't sell at this price, then maybe I'm going to reduce your commission before I reduce the price of the house. Or maybe I'm going to reduce the price of the house and bring your commission down from 5% to 4.5%, or 4%, meaning the reduction in the house was covered by the fee. Now, I know a lot of my peers aren't going to like to hear that answer, but time is money, guys, and you gotta produce, right? We're in a production environment. The longer a house sits on the market, the more time and money the seller's losing. But on the seller's point, number 3, you got to be flexible with showings. I get it. It can be inconvenient. I get it that, you have people that are going to want to see your houses, your homes at all different parts of the day. So really make sure that you and your agent have a good strategy and a good plan, specifically on a communication standpoint, on how often they're going to have showings and what time of day, when this is going to happen. But you as a seller need to be flexible because, again, the more showings, the more offers. Maybe you can knock it out in a couple weekends just doing open houses. The only thing I'm going to give you pause with and caution about open houses is when I do an open house, I try to get as much information on who's going to attend. So I try to do a selective open house or a tour open house where I set timelines, right? This group of people are going to look at it at 1. This group of people are going to look at it at 2. This group of people are going to look at it at 3 or 11 or 12 or whatever. And I try to understand of the people that are going to come see the open house, are they qualified? But you can't catch everybody because you can get neighbors and people in the area just kicking the tires. I call them professional lookers, right? They have no intention of buying. They just want to see what the inside of your house looks like to give them some ideas of what they can do in their house. Not a great use of time, but you just got to be careful with that. So making sure that you have a time frame set aside in how the communication is going to happen when somebody wants to see your house. And your agent should be not just accepting a showing unless your house is empty and, there's not a lot of disruption to you. They shouldn't just be accepting a showing if they don't understand from the buyer agent, is that buyer qualified? Now, I would hope most buyer agents, and I play on that side of the equation as well, when I'm showing houses and I'm representing a buyer, right? Number one, I have to have a contract. That's the first rule of the game now since August of last year. All buyer brokers or all agents, all brokers representing buyers have to have a contract before they even open up that door. But I would hope that these buyer agents know that their clients, what they can qualify for. I would hope that when I say yes to a buyer agent or a buyer broker that's going to show a house to one of their clients, that client is qualified at the price I'm asking for my seller. Last thing I want is, let's say I'm offering property for $500,000 and a buyer broker says, I want to do a showing for my client, and that client's only qualified at $400,000, right? Hoping that we will come down on price. So just be cognizant of that. Not a lot you can do as a seller to control that, but your agent, your buyer, your selling agent, your listing broker, whatever you want to call them, make sure that this is not their first rodeo. This is one of the reasons why you shouldn't always offer a listing to your friends or family if they don't have a lot of experience, just because you like them. Because, you wouldn't go to a heart doctor if you had a heart issue because your friend just got out of med school and now works for a cardiologist, right? You'd probably want to go to somebody that's got a little bit more experience. So be flexible with showings. Number 4, be willing to pay part of the buyer's closing costs. Be willing to offer home warranties. Be willing to offer a way to reduce their mortgage rates. So there's programs out there like called the 2-1 Buydown, right? So let me just walk you through it real quick, and I'll kind of throw some of this information up on the screen. Let's say you got a buyer and they come to you and they say, are you willing to help me with some of my mortgage rates or my mortgage rate buy down? And as a seller, you haven't probably heard about this before because it used to be, wait, why am I paying to help you when in the past I've heard that people were offering $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 over list price. Well, they could offer that because the interest rate was 2% or 3%, or they're a cash buyer. Gone are the days of cash buyers, guys. I'm not saying there's not a few out there still, but for the most part, the cash buying business is out the door. Unless you're in the luxury homes, $2 million or more, then typically you have that type of market and those types of demographics where they are paying cash because they have, some more. It's the more affluent people in this country. But buy downs, right? So how does a 2-1 buy down work? So you could get an offer, and this is where the listing broker really needs to understand again from the lender, right? You could get an offer that says, hey, I want you to buy down my interest rate from 7% to 5%. So that's 2%, right, for the first year. And then I want you to offer 1%, so from 7 to 6% for the second year. And then my third year of my mortgage, my interest rate will start at 7%. So what has to happen in that example is you're only paying the spread between what the principal and interest would be between 7% and 5% for the first year. So let's just say, and I didn't do any math, I probably should have done these numbers first. Let's just say somebody gives you an offer at full asking price, but needs you to do a buy down, or maybe a little bit more than asking price, but needs you to do a buy down. So what is the difference between 2% for 1 year on a mortgage? Guys, it isn't technically a ton of money. It really isn't when you do run it over an amortization schedule, right? 2% for the first year won't be that much money. Do your own math. I'll throw some numbers up here to just give you an idea. And then 1% year two is even less, just to get that buyer locked in, see, they're looking for something back. There's the other option where you could say, as long as the house appraises, you could say, well, I'll tell you what, I'll do that. But instead of offering me this, offer me, counter with a higher asking price. Because what buyers will do if they are qualified and if your house will appraise is they would rather finance a little bit more and get some concessions from you as a seller at closing or over the first few years of their loan. By financing a little bit more, they're hoping, and we are hoping as buyer brokers, as I represent buyers, that interest rates will come down and they can refinance anyways, saving that money as well. But if the house will appraise for a little bit more and you're willing to, and the buyer is willing to give you a little bit more, and then you give it back to them in concessions, essentially all you're doing is helping them finance a little bit more for them, then that's another strategy that you can work on. So helping that. And then obviously, if you don't do that, paying part of closing costs, right? Buyers have all kinds of closing costs that sellers don't have. Obviously, you as a seller, you're going to have whatever you owe on your mortgage. You're going to have a new title deed prep. You're going to have the commissions that you're going to owe your realtor. And you may have it depends if you're selling and you're moving out of state, you're going to have, at least in the state of Maine, they hold 2.5% back that you have to wait till the following tax season to get back. It's a law that Maine state has for out-of-state sellers. But your closing costs are not nearly as steep as what a buyer's closing cost is. And I'm sure you know this because at one point you were a buyer. And then the last thing, guys, is understand that with the new law, sellers, listing agents, listing brokers can only negotiating their portion. So let me make this clear to you if you didn't know this. Back in the day, a listing broker, somebody's going to sell your house, you say how much, and let's say they say 6%. And you say, great. And the rule of thumb was there'd be a co-broke, right? They would unilaterally work with both buyers and sellers, and whoever was representing a buyer would get half of that 6% or 3%, right? So it was a co-broke between the two agencies, and both parties would make money off that 6%. That all changed in August of 2024, the new NAR settlement, National Association of Realtors. Listing agents now, listing brokers should only be negotiating with you their portion of the commission. They should also be working with you to understand that if a buyer comes, if I don't have any buyers personally that I know that's going to come that wants this house, and a buyer broker brings, then that buyer broker has the right to be compensated as well. But a lot of buyers, they can't compensate their buyer broker 100% because they just don't have the money. Just like probably when you bought your home, the seller paid that commission to the buyer broker. So today, in these day and ages, the buyer broker now has to ask for a percentage to be paid to their real estate company, their realty, at closing. So typically what happens is, and I'll give you an example of what I do, right? I have a property on the market that just went under contract. It's actually a multifamily. And I negotiated 3% with my clients. I will get paid 3% when this house sells. Now I got to show it. I got to coordinate with the inspection. I got to coordinate with the appraisal. I got to make sure whatever loan's accepted, whatever we do, I understand the loan. And, because it's a multifamily, I got to show it. I have to be at every showing all the time. And that became quite challenging because we had a lot of showings and dealing with the tenants and giving them 24 hours notice. It was a lot of work on my part versus just selling an empty house. But I agreed at 3%. We got a contract. The buyer broker asked in the contract for 3% as well. And my seller fought back and said, Scott, I don't want to pay more than 5% total. So counter to them and only offer them 2%. And I countered to them and only offered them 2%. And then we got into some kind of negotiations because the buyer also said, listen, I got to make more than 2%, the buyer broker. I got to make more than 2%. My buyer can't pay me the additional 1%. They're right maxed up to what they can borrow. The buyer may decide to walk away because he or she, he can't afford to pay me that 1%. And I'm not willing to lose a whole percent based upon all the stuff that I have to do. So I went back to my seller and I said, listen, I don't want you guys to lose the deal. I will split it with them. So I'll keep you guys at 5%. I will drop my commission down to 2.5%, and I'll give him, that buyer broker, the actual 0.5%. So we're both splitting, 5% evenly. That's typically the way things should work in general, guys. But the reason why this all changed, because you had listing agents offering, this actually happened in Kansas City, telling the sellers 6%, and they were keeping 4 to 5% and only giving the buyer brokers 1 to 2%. And then the seller's like, why am I paying this? I negotiated 6. Why aren't you splitting it in half? There's a whole reason why all this came to be. So the whole point of the law was more transparency. So all buyer brokers now, they have to negotiate with their client first what they're going to ask for in terms of a commission. They have to have a contract before they can even show your house. And then number 3, once they have that and they make an offer, their commission has to be asked for in the purchase and sale. So the seller, you, really knows what is being paid for to the buyer, as well as what you're paying for to the seller or to the listing agent. Excuse me. So understanding that. And then last, guys, and this is really where experience matters. You're probably not going to like this answer, but I'm going to say it anyways. We are not living in 2021 and 2022 where interest rates are 2 to 3%. Houses in Maine have appreciated 71% since 2019, and they haven't dropped, and interest rates are still high. Guys, your house may be overpriced. So I know you don't want to hear that because you're emotionally tied to your home. You're emotionally tied to your home and you think it's worth all this money. And it could be. When somebody wants me to come talk to them about listing their house, they ask me, well, how much do you think my house is worth? And then I say, well, how much do you think it's worth? And they're like, well, you go first, or they may tell me. But typically, I never go on that appointment, even if it's with a friend, without doing some market research first to understand not only what is sold in the market that's like their house, but what's available in the market, what's their competition, right? Doing a property analysis, positioning your property properly is important, so you understand and your seller understands this is what's going on in the market. This is what has closed in the market, and this is where you're going to be positioned in the market based upon the type of house you own, the location of that house, where it is located, and the condition of that house, right? Ranches actually get more per square footage than colonials do, 2 stories, because more people want single-level living, specifically as you get older. And they want those bigger basements. So a ranch basement is typically bigger than a colonial because colonials go up, where ranches are spread out wider on the first floor, and then you have more basement for storage, right? Single-level living. So just as an example, that's just one example. But you really got to understand the market. There's a lot of feelings and emotions and desires in real estate, but the one thing that does not lie, if you read the numbers true, is math. You can't argue with the numbers. You can't argue with math. Now, you may have a property that stands out because there's something unique about that property. And me as a listing agent, me as a broker trying to sell your property, I want to know that. Of course, I want to sell your property for as much as possible, for as much as that's reasonable that the market can bear, that the home will appraise for. You got to remember, appraisals are a big thing today. Cash offers are gone, so a lot of buyers need the house to appraise. So really, it doesn't really matter what you're asking for the house as long as it appraises what you're asking for. So it's our job as realtors to understand what the market will appraise at. And when we go to list a house, we got to understand, all right, it's one thing to get an offer. It's very different to get it to close based upon inspections, which we call contingencies, and appraisals, right? Will it appraise? So those are things you got to look out for. A good realtor will be able to go through that with you to help you understand this is why your house is this amount. And it could be more or less than you're asking, but this is why your house is this amount. And here's what the market is telling me right now. And sure, like here in March, right, things are a little slower in Maine. It's the winter months, right? And we know the market's going to heat up a little bit. It's not going to go crazy like it did 3 years ago. So we know that that market may come up 1% or 2% as the warmer weather gets here. And we can position for that. But that being said, houses are starting to be overpriced, and you're seeing more and more, and they don't call them price reductions. They call them price improvements. You know, it's a little subliminal thing, but it's really they're bringing their price down because they started out too high. And that is where it's really important, you guys as a seller, when you're talking to your listing agent, when you're talking to people that are going to sell your house, that are going to represent you as a realtor to sell your house, that they really have their I's dotted and their T's crossed. Because I can tell you, a lot of people came in this industry after COVID thinking they're going to make a quick buck. The interest rates are low, houses are flying off the shelf, and they didn't really have to do much to get. If they could get your house on the contract or get your house on the market, get a contract with you, if you will, to list your house, they would pretty much guarantee to make money because the houses were selling themselves. Those days are gone. Now you got to work a little bit harder. You got to be more informed and more intuitive and understand what's going on in the market. So a lot of agents, realtors, are just taking anything because they need a listing, hoping and praying that somebody's going to see the house on the MLS, or they're going to spend some money on it, and somebody's going to make an offer. But then what happens is 30 days goes by, or 60 days goes by, and you start getting a little frustrated talking to your agent. How come I've got no showings? How come this house isn't moving? What's going on? Did we price it too high? What do you think, right? And they have to have the unenviable task of saying, yeah, I think it's too high. Well, why didn't you tell me that 2 months ago, right? Because they didn't want to tell you that because they were afraid you would go to somebody else and get what you wanted and be in the same boat. And the double-edged sword is the longer the house sits on the market, the more it gets this intrinsic value, like there might be something wrong with it. Why hasn't this sold yet? Is it overpriced? Is there something wrong with it? And you lose more attraction or attractability from buyers looking at that house. The ideal situation is you put a house on the market, you get a ton of offers, first weekend you show it or the second weekend you show it, and it's under contract within 30 days. And guys, that is happening if your house is priced right. I'm going to leave you with this regarding pricing. You don't want buyers trying to tell themselves in their heads why they shouldn't pay for the house that it's priced at when they're walking around and looking at things, right? No house is perfect, right? But they're going to start picking apart the littlest things that your house may not have or offer, maybe no fault of your own, versus buyers coming into your house saying, wow, this is a great priced house. It's in a great neighborhood. Oh, yeah, I see that and this and that, but that's not a big deal, man. Just based upon where it's located, I probably should offer a little bit more because I think other people are going to see that as well, and I don't want to lose out on this house. So strategically pricing your house in a price point that isn't the highest. I get it, guys. You want top dollar, but sometimes that institutional thinking and unconventional thinking is bring your house down a little bit more, get more showings, again, which gets more offers, and maybe, just maybe, those offers will be more or equal to what you would have started it if you had the house priced way up here and you finally got an offering in 3 months, right? And also remember, sellers, you're 100% in control. You don't have to accept any offer. So what are you losing by saying, I'm going to price my house here versus here and letting more offers come? Because you can say no to every one of them. No, 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 no. Because you're hoping that the price will come up. Now, obviously, it's better to have those options than you have no offers and no options, right? That's my strategy. That's what I think you should be doing. Look at the price of your house. Have somebody do a really thorough competitive market analysis of what's going on and what the projections are saying and what's going on in the industry and all those other things to really understand where your house should be priced. And then if your house has some unique values or qualities or something you've done to it that stands out, those need to be highlighted and emphasized when the listing agent is trying to position your house on the market, both on the MLS and through marketing, social media, and all that. Guys, I hope this information was helpful. Just reading through if I missed anything. If your house isn't sound, obviously reassess price, look at your marketing program, marketing plans, be flexible, be open to conversations, say you're willing to accept every offer within reason, right? You're not going to be insulted by any offer. Some listing agents, if your house is priced right, is still putting a deadline on when the offers are due. I think that's still a good strategy if your house is priced right, because you're creating a sense of urgency that buyers need to make an offer, right? So I wouldn't do that until I had an open house so I could show some people that. Or I wouldn't do it maybe for a week and let some showings happen. But that being said, if your house is priced a little bit higher, you may just want to say, we're going to evaluate each offer as it stands, and we'll let you know. And what I do when I do that case is, I did this on this multi-unit that I just put on the contract. I had like 13 or 14 showings, and everybody's like, I'm going to go back, we're going to figure out finance, and we'll give you an offer, or an offer's coming. And they kind of waited a little bit. And then I went back to all of them when I got an offer in hand saying, hey, guys, I have an offer in hand that my sellers are seriously considering. It's close to what we're in. It's in the ballpark of what we're asking. So if you're going to do anything, I will give you 24, maybe 48 hours, depending on the offer I have in hand and when that's due, for an answer. And, some people say, oh, thank you very much. Yeah, my buyer's not going to make an offer. Or thank you very much. We've been trying to figure out this finance and we'll get you something in a day or something. But they already know now there's competition, so they're going to have to make the pot a little bit more sweeter. It's all about perception, guys. It really is. Perception is reality in many points of real estate. Obviously, the perception of a perceived value of a home and what it is really worth can be more or less, but the numbers don't lie. So just make sure when you're going to sell your house, you have a pretty good understanding of what the market is doing, what like houses that you have are selling for, and are you willing to accept that or not? I hope this information was helpful, guys. If you like what you hear, subscribe. Let me know what you want to know, if there's any more stuff you want to know about selling or anything in real estate here in Maine. I did a video not too long. My last video was about the market update, and somebody asked me to do a deeper dive in Ellsworth and Camden. So I'll send it out just to that person want to know more about Ellsworth and Camden area of Maine. They're a buyer, just to give them an idea. But I generally answer all my community comments and try to help out as many people as possible, stay educated on what's going on in Maine, why you want to live here, why you want to adopt the culture, not change the culture, adopt the culture. I'm getting quite a few comments on don't let anybody else into the state. They're going to change and ruin our state. I don't believe that's the case, guys. We only have 1.4 million people. So, Maine is the most sparsely populated state in the country. There's plenty of room for growth. I think the real fear is that too many people are going to move to Maine. They're going to change the culture. They're going to try to adopt where they came from. I just don't see that happening. Not unless, our population doubles or triples. But I don't see that happening either, because there are a lot of people that don't want to live here because it's cold. That being said, I found out there's a lot of people that do want to live here because it's cold and they want to get out of the heat of the South. So, I don't know. I'm just a pawn in this game of chess half the time, just trying to, help as many people as I can steer and navigate through the maze we call real estate based upon my experience and kind of where I'm at in life. So, all right, guys, without further ado, have a great day. I'll get this out in a couple of days. Stay safe, stay warm if you're up here in the Northeast. Stay out of trouble and stay vigilant, right? A lot of crazy things happen in this world. Make sure you're not just buried in your phone when you're walking around, and make sure, kind of stay off social media a little bit. There's such divisiveness on social media, especially on Facebook, whether you agree with people that are posting or whether you don't. I've had to hide a bunch of friends just for 30 days because they're way out there, way different opinion than I have. And I was just like, God, give it a rest. You're wasting a lot of time on energy. You could be spending time and your energy on something else. So just give it a rest. But I'm here to help, guys. Anybody that's looking to sell and you don't have a broker, you don't know somebody, or you want to know more about what I can do for you, reach out. Text, call me, send me a message. Certainly, if you're in the Southern Maine market, let me know. And we can sit down and just have a conversation. No pressure. I'll just give you what I believe the facts to be, and you can make a decision from there. I'm not here to convince anybody to use me to sell their houses, and I'm not here to convince anybody what their house is worth. I'm a kind of factual, analytical, and I don't BS. It is what it is. I'm straight to the point. I'll give you the numbers. If you don't like them, I'll explain why I have the numbers that I have. You may love them. You may say, this makes sense. Who knows? I've done a lot for a lot of different clients in this state, and maybe you may be interested in me helping you as well, and I'm always open to a conversation. All right, guys, take care. Have a great weekend. Scott Thibeau, over and out. Bye-bye.